everyone, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040 and welcome to the final edition of the Flash Season 9 review series. And today I'm going to be talking about episode 13, A New World Part 4 finale, which I have just finished watching. And for those of you who know already, this is the fourth and final part of the 4-part series finale called A New World. And do I think this was a fitting conclusion to the final Arrowverse show? I would say, for the most part, this was pretty decent. I thought it was quite enjoyable and very watchable. But, however, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that there weren't any issues with the series finale for The Flash, because there was a few issues. And I will address those issues as we go forward here. I felt that the final episode of The Flash, as I mentioned, was enjoyable. It wasn't boring, far from it. But at certain times, it felt rushed. It really did. This episode was 37 minutes long, which, quite frankly, was disappointing. I think this should have been an hour-long episode, or at least a 2-hour event, because this is the final episode of The Flash. You're only going to get one chance at this. Make the most of it. I think they should have really gone to town and just made it a 2-hour TV movie, because this could have wrapped up lots of things. In a way, it kind of did, but at the same time, I felt it could have been so much more, because I've been a fan of The Flash since the day it started back in October 2014. I've watched every season. I've been on this journey from the highs to the lows to the ups and the downs. And I just really felt that this should have been more. I really was expecting something really special. I'm not completely hating on this episode, because I didn't hate it. Far from it. I just felt it could have been more. Really could have been more. And in terms of the way it ended, yeah, I was fine with it, but I was really expecting something special. And as I said earlier, a lot of it felt rushed. You know, certain things I wanted to see happen, it did happen, but just not the way I would have liked to have seen it played out. And, lots of things I wanted to see get addressed didn't really get addressed as such. Certain people I wanted to see come back, they didn't, which I will talk about as we go forward here. But, just certain things I really wanted to see and I didn't get what I wanted, which is a real shame, really, because I've been a fan of this show for many years and I just really wanted to see something special. But what can you do, really? It is what it is. So, as always, I am going to give a quick recap of what's happened so far, and then after that, we're going to get straight into talking about the final episode of The Flash. So, as we saw previously in episode 12, we saw Eddie Thawne return from the dead. He was revived by the negative Speed Force. We saw him digging up his own grave, and he even pulled out the bullet that he used to kill himself to take out the Reverse Flash. And we saw him trying to find out how he came back from the dead. And we heard the voice telling him that he could have everything he wanted. And he was presented with a young girl resembling Nora West Allen, claiming to be his daughter. And we also saw Barry and Eddie meet each other for the first time in many years, and that was really good as well. Eddie went to 2049 to see Iris, and he gets rejected, and we started to see the negative Speed Force fracturing the timeline, and we saw at the end Eddie Thawne had possession of the blue crystal. He accepted its power and opened the portal, and we saw images of other evil speedsters like Zoom, Savitar, and Reverse Flash, and Godspeed. We saw all these different evil speedsters. And that's how we ended episode 12. It really helped set the stage for the final episode of The Flash. So, with that all said, let's not waste any more time. Let's get straight into it. Let's talk about episode 13, the series finale, A New World Part 4 finale. So, this episode starts off with a voiceover as we see Team Flash in 2020 is filled in by Cecile that Eddie Thawne is alive and well and is the avatar for the negative speed force, and that the negative speed force has been doing what it's doing, and that's traveling through time and attacking it. We see Barry Allen has returned to the present and informs the team that he is on his way to the hospital, as we know that Iris West Allen is about to give birth, and tells the team that the battle has already begun. Existence itself is in danger. We then get a montage of Zoom and Godspeed being drawn from their respective deaths that we saw in previous seasons, and we see they are teleported to the negative Speed Force manifestation of the West House. Both evil speedsters have no idea how they ended up where they are, and they begin fighting one another and exchange words with one another until Eobard Thawne also returns, once again wearing the face of Harrison Wells, and he tells them that they are in the negative speed force and proceeds to mock Zoom. We also see Savitar shows up as well, demanding to know how he got there, and we see Eddie Thawne appear and explains that he is the one that's brought all of these speeds together, and points out to all of them that they have all died in their attempts to defeat the Flash, and none of them were powerful enough or fast enough to pull it off. But he feels that together, combined, they can do it. Eddie Thawne then accepts and embraces the blue crystal and is transformed into Cobalt Blue, finally, and offers the others enough speed in exchange to kill the Flash. Now, this was really good, and I kind of expected this, with the timeline falling apart. I kind of expected to see all of the speedsters get teleported to the negative speed force. So I kind of knew this was where they were going. So different speedsters teleported from their respective timelines at the point where they were about to die. I thought that was very well done. I didn't really like the idea of Eddie Thawne being the one to bring the evil speedsters together. I always felt that should have been Eobard because he's the smartest, and it just would have made more sense for him to be the one to bring all of these guys together. We didn't really get to see other evil speedsters like the rival. I thought that would have been nice to bring him on board, but I guess in a way he's not really what you would call a heavy hitter of the speedsters. All the speedsters you see here, like Zoom, Savitar, Godspeed, Reverse Flash, and finally Cobalt Blue, all of these guys, they have all got major beef with the Flash. So I guess there was no need to bring the rival in, but I still would have liked to have seen him just to round it off, really. But it was still nice to see all of these guys together. Great to see Zoom back. I've missed him on the show very dearly. And, we did get a little cameo with him a few seasons back, but it was really good to see him back, once again. Meanwhile, at the hospital, we see Barry has returned and Iris is happy to see him, but she still hasn't given birth yet. Barry starts to tell her about Eddie Thawne returning from the dead when he shows up and officially introduces himself as Cobalt Blue. He wants to kill Barry so he can have a timeline where he's the hero and have the life he feels was taken from him. But Iris and Barry know that isn't what the negative Speed Force is up to, and it is merely using Eddie as a pawn. Cobalt Blue asks Barry any last words, and Iris says, "Yes, I have just three. Run, Barry, run." And then we see Eddie and Barry both race off and fight one another. Now, anybody who's heard my reviews knows that I've been wanting to see Cobalt Blue on the show ever since the show started. I'm really pleased we finally got to that, but just imagine how season 9 could have been if Eddie Thawne was brought back from the dead at the beginning of season 9 and he was the main villain throughout the whole season. You could have still had all of the evil speedsters show up towards the end for the final battle, but just imagine how good this could have been if we didn't have all that Red Death stuff and we just had Cobalt Blue all throughout season 9. I think we would have been having a very different conversation. Maybe you could have had Red Death show up for an episode, but maybe not drawn it out the way they did. But yeah, I enjoyed all of this, but I just really wish that we could have had this drawn out just a little bit longer, just maybe a whole season at least, especially as it's the final season. So we see Eddie manages to get the upper hand and almost kills Barry before Nora shows up with the rest of Team Flash to fight as well. And Eddie says, "Oh, I see you've brought help. The whole gang's here. But guess what? I've got my own legion." And we see Godspeed, Savitar, Zoom, and Reverse Flash appear through portals. And we see Reverse Flash in typical trolling mode taunts Barry and says, "You didn't really think I was going to miss how all of this was going to play out, did you? Hmm?" Classic stuff. So we see Cobalt Blue's Legion goes for the team, but Keone says they won't win. The Flash for Delta maneuvers, and they all start fighting each of the evil speedsters individually. We see Savitar captures and stabs Nora in the same way that he stabbed Iris in a possible future, but it doesn't work. She's able to reverse it and stab him with his own dagger instead. We see Cecile as Virtual face off with Godspeed, getting in his head and defeating him. We see the Reverse Flash confronting Chester at Star Labs and seemingly kills him with his own electric shock. Allegra shows up and takes Fawn down when she goads her about Nash. And just when things are looking their grimmest for Chester, he comes back and wakes up, and we see Chester and Allegra kiss. Now, this is where one of the issues starts. Why would you bring all of these evil speedsters back just to waste them? This should have been, this is what I would have liked to have seen. We should have had Barry take on all of the evil speedsters by himself. This is kind of like the Flash's last stand. He's going to face every speedster he's ever fought since he became the Flash, and we should have had that. And I would have liked to have seen all of the evil speedsters put down a nasty beat down on him. And I was hoping, and I thought this was how it was going to play out. I thought all of the evil speedsters would start arguing with one another and all bickering about, "No, I should be the one to kill the Flash. No, I should be the one. No, I should be the one." And they all start to turn on each other. And in the end, Eobard Form craps on all of them, turns on the entire team, and says, "If anyone is going to have the honour of killing the fastest man alive, it's me." That's what should have happened. I thought that was what's going to happen, that Eobard Form would turn on them, but these guys just showed up and got defeated easily. Disappointing. We then see Zoom is confronted by the CCPD, but Chilbane and Keone show up. Keone catches Zoom's lightning, absorbs it, and fires back at him. At Jitters, we see Cobalt Blue tries to take hostages, and we see Jay Garrick show up to aid Barry. Now, this was fine. Jay Garrick showing up to help Barry, that was fine. We should have had some of the speedsters, getting involved. Jay Garrick, maybe Jesse Quick. I know that she died in Crisis, but with the whole multiverse thing, maybe we could have had her make an appearance. Wally West should have appeared. Bart Allen. We should have had good speedsters versus evil speedsters. That's what we should have had. Ultimately, it's still Barry's fight, but that's what we should have had. So we see Jay Garrick steals Eddie's speed and declares that it's a trick he learned from his Earth 90 doppelganger. Nice. Eddie then calls on Speed from the other fallen speedsters to repower himself and then disappears. Jay says that Eddie's going to the source of his speed where he will overload and kill himself just like Eobard Thawne did. Instead of letting Eddie die and the whole cycle restarting with another avatar, Barry thinks that he needs to save Eddie. Barry wants to save both the timelines and Eddie somehow, but it's something that seems impossible. Keone says that He can get Barry into the negative speed force, but tells Barry he must change Eddie's perspective if he is to have any chance. Barry says he doesn't know how to make a world a better place. She tells him that nature is about coexistence, and Barry isn't buying it, but Keone tells him to believe in the impossible. Barry gets into the negative speed force and tackles Cobalt Blue, telling him the connection to the negative speed force will kill him. Cobalt Blue doesn't believe him. They continue to fight, or rather, Eddie just completely beats the tar out of him, screaming at him that you ruined my life, you've taken everything away from me, and Barry refuses to fight back. Eddie slowly starts to become the reverse Flash to the hatred and influence of the negative speed force, and Barry points out to Eddie and tells him that he has to remain the Avatar, but he must fight the hate. They must work together to create a better world. Somehow the power of friendship and the promise of good wins out, and Eddie tears out the blue crystal out of his chest and smashes it with his foot. Eddie says they won't always see eye to eye, but tells Iris that he's happy for her. Barry ends up back at the hospital just in time for Iris to give birth. Team Flash confirm that the timelines are back to normal. Mark figures that Chester is unscathed because he has Hawking radiation in his cells. Chester has black hole powers as a holdover from when he was merged with a black hole. He's now the Chunk, thus giving Chester his comic book accurate name. Stupid stuff, I would say. Everyone heads to the hospital, including Nora, as they wait for the birth. Keone is approached by the real Harrison Wells, who is now a timeless Wells, and he's there to tell her to ascend and become the protector of all things. When she is sad about having to say goodbye to her family, he tells her it's about carrying a piece of the ones you love wherever you go. Iris gives birth, baby Nora has arrived, Joe has a moment with Iris and the baby and sings to the baby. At Star Labs, Keone says her goodbyes before shedding her mortal body in a storm of elements, and left in her place is Caitlin, alive and well. When Keone no longer needed a mortal body, she left it, and thus restoring Caitlin to life. We then see 1 week later it's a party at Barry and Iris' home for little Nora. Adult Nora is also there. I'm surprised the timeline hasn't completely crashed with two Noras in the same timeline. Barry apologizes to Caitlin and she accepts his apology, saying she understands now that she was just trying to do what was wrong and unnatural. Even Timeless Wells is there at the party. Nora tells her parents things are crazy before Bart is born too. Joe gives a speech acknowledging Iris's achievements as well as Cecile's and then proposes to her. She says yes. Later, Barry goes to deal with a fussy Nora. He tells her to believe in the impossible, and as he starts to tell her a story, telling her that the family have been blessed with amazing gifts and maybe they should share it. He casts out his lightning and it chooses Avery Ho, Max Mercury, and Jess Chambers. He tells Nora that by sharing a piece of themselves, maybe they can create a better world where everyone coexists and nothing is impossible as long as we believe the impossible. As we see Barry in his Flash costume run off into full speed. And that's how we end the final episode of The Flash. Overall, pretty decent and solid episode. I am a little bit bummed out that we brought the evil speedsters back and just pretty much wasted them. I would have liked to have seen a much longer scene where the evil speedsters are beating the crap out of Barry and all of the evil speedsters start to turn on each other because they want the honour of killing Barry. That's what should have happened, and we should have had all of the good speedsters getting involved, coming to the rescue, but ultimately still Barry's fight. But everything about it just felt a bit rushed, if I'm truly honest. This should have been a much longer episode. Maybe this should have been an hour, as I mentioned at the beginning. But, you know, what can you do, really? But this was still enjoyable, but just a few things I would have liked to have seen, really. I definitely would have liked to have seen an epilogue where we see Barry and Iris have grown old together and we see Nora and Bart are all grown up, you know, doing their own thing as speedsters, protecting Central City in the future. That would have been cool. I would have liked to have seen maybe of the new speedsters that are picked, maybe we should have had Danica. For those of you who know Danica, she appeared in the Batman Beyond and Justice League Beyond comics. Would have liked to have seen her in a cameo of sorts, but what can you do, really? You can't have everything. But overall, I thought this was a decent episode and a nice way to wrap up the final Arrowverse show. So that's going to be it from me. I am going to wrap this up now. What did you think of the series finale of The Flash? Did you enjoy it? Would you have liked to have seen this as maybe an extended episode? Do you think maybe this should have been an hour plus long episode? Maybe a 2 hour event? Do you think some of the stuff was a bit rushed? Do you think maybe we should have had a bit more time with the evil speedsters? You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below. And I want to take this opportunity to say a special thank you to everyone for listening to me talking about all of these final episodes of season 9 of The Flash. I hope you've enjoyed it, and it's been an amazing ride. So until next time, take care, everybody, and stay safe. And once again, as always, much appreciated. Thanks for listening.